Sustainability isn't just a gimmick, it's a profit driver. And if you're not sustainable and your competition are, you're going to miss out on customers who'll move over to those who can make them feel like it's easy work to do the right thing. Supply chains and sustainability aren't luxury add-ons, they're frontline strategy. Disruption is baseline. Eco-consciousness is a profit defense. Name your top 3 supply chain risks right now without pausing. Go.
Yeah, retail reckoning. No space for dusty shelves. 'Cause retail reckoning owns the floor.
Okay, so permanent disruption. What does that really mean? 47% of UK businesses have reported disruption in the past year, with 60% saying supply line was more brittle than ever. Drivers are inflation, as declared in mid-August at 3.8%. Energy costs, Ukraine war, Red Sea issues. It's coming out of all sources. And we know, as the industry, that stock issues are a major problem. Retailers have lost billions, delayed stock, disrupted inventory. Cyber attacks. M&S claim they lost around 300 million and $1 billion off their valuation, according to AP News, due to everything that happened to them. We've got to build redundancy, diversify supplier base, and scenario plan for disruption, because disruption is no longer uncommon. It's the norm. And what does that even mean? What we need to look at is being more nimble and being able to pivot. There's a couple of brands who I've noted are working more on nearshoring. What I mean by that is they're not reliant on routes out of China, India, Pakistan, and so on. They're nearshoring perhaps to Europe and the UK. Fat Face and Jules. The PwC have noted that retail tech investment is up 10% year on year for things like point of sale, inventory planning, AI forecasting, and lean operations. So lots of the businesses in this sector, the bigger guys, are finding ways to be more flexible, I guess, and more able to respond to the chaos that we see in the world. I mean, we haven't even talked about tariffs. Nearshoring appears to be the best choice for now. It may change in the future, but if you can get UK or relatively close EU supply, and that there is some level of security of the supply chain, that would be the best option, despite it probably being higher cost on the product. But is it really higher cost when you think about the cost of lost inventory, containers stuck in the Red Sea, containers being hijacked and so on? It feels sometimes like the world's gone a bit mad. So my advice would be to test regional and more local options. Investing in much more transparency about the supply chain and speed of supply. So you've got much more agility, meaning if a product takes off and you're on a 6-month lead time from China, you can't respond. But if you're on a 1-month lead time from, say, France, you can. You need to reduce reliance on single points of failure. That's been the case for supply chains for years. And with the way things are in the global economies, there is no other choice but to really work on creating some level of resilience and also much closer sourcing options. The other thing when it comes to supply chains is people are looking at carbon miles. They're far more cautious, let's say, about where they spend than they ever were. Certainly Gen Z, and they are the next generation of consumers. They may not have the spending power just yet, but they are your next wave of customers. So I think you need to use sustainability as a profit engine. 64% of UK customers are saying they will pay more for green, whatever that means to them. I mean, define that. But the point is, a third are already switching to brands because of their ethics. And that's coming out of people like Vogue Business and so on. We do know there is a growing and burgeoning trend towards greener and more sustainable products and services. Aldi have ditched non-recyclable packaging by 2026, according to their statements. And I think that says an awful lot, because as a lower cost provider, they are moving towards also being a lower cost and most ethical provider. Now, M&S have had Plan A for many, many years because there is no Plan B, but it's true. If the businesses tell their shoppers that by shopping with them, you're doing the right thing for the planet without even trying, it drives loyalty. It makes the lazy consumer much more aligned to our brand. Yes, you've got the zero waste shops where you can take something and refill it and so on, but that's more hassly than Aldi telling us that they'll have no non-recyclable packaging. M&S telling us everything they do is going to be as green as possible, because that just makes our lives that bit easier. So I would say for any business, large or small, you've got to make your sustainability credentials visible, and you need to translate it into the marketing and in-store experience. Sell the story. I've seen some brilliant imagery in co-ops. I was in Lincolnshire at the time, so I think it would be under Lincolnshire Co-op, all credit to them. They had images of wind turbines in the toilets, but it sold the story and it was everywhere. And you felt like by shopping with them, you were doing the right thing. I would say, if you can make your customers feel like by shopping with you, they are doing the right thing, then you're going to win. That kind of leads us to storytelling versus trust. If you've got information about sustainability, supply chains, ethical purchasing, and so on, whether that be through trained staff, QR codes on products that someone can click to find out more, labels which carry the clear messaging. I think there's the red tractor, isn't there, in the sustainability for food and so on. All of that goes a long way. And I think one of the brands that I feel is the most innovative in this, or certainly has been a leader, is Innocent. Because you get your little smoothie with telling a story. It's got a funky picture on it. Sometimes it wore a little woolly hat too, which was quite funny. And Innocent told us about where the food had come from, and it told us about how it was made and so on. And more brands are doing that now. And I can see a quiet shift towards those brands that feel more honest and more aligned to our personal values and our care for the planet, for those of us that care. So my advice on this is you need to be really authentic. Customers have got to see you as real. You need to make sure that staff are well trained so that if customers talk to them, they know exactly how to get across the positioning, the messaging, and tell the story. And even down to products and labeling, it needs to somehow relate them back to something that they can buy into, not just because it's a good value for money product or because it's something they fancy buying, but because when they buy it, it makes them feel good about themselves. And that's really, really important. Similarly, linked to my earlier episode, I just want to reinforce that heritage doesn't mean impunity, because despite the fact a company may have been going for years, literally hundreds of years, the evidence from Woolworths, Debenhams, Claire's, River Island, W.H. Smith, it proves that being trusted isn't enough, and that the legacy of those businesses and the years they've traded isn't protection against the economic stresses that everybody's feeling these days. We need to constantly reevaluate and pivot businesses where necessary, because consumers' expectations are changing. So what more could those businesses have done, for example, to show that they were reducing wastage, that they were being more sustainable? What stories were they not telling that they might have been able to tell? And that's the sad fact. Lots of businesses almost become complacent and think, well, we've been around for years, we're doing really well, but they're not telling the stories that are relevant to today and to today's customer. And unfortunately, that means they're losing their customers to other people. The other issue I've got with supply chains is wastage. And wastage is basically lost profit. 40% of retailers reported cost savings in the first year of their eco-investments by looking at lean packaging and inventory management in a much more focused lens, because less waste was better margin. It stands to reason. That's what the Japanese car industry did in, I believe, the 80s or 90s with the Kaizen culture. They worked on Kaizen, which meant reduced waste. I think the word for it was Muda. Kaizen, or total quality management as it became known, was all about reducing waste to increase profitability. And that's why the Japanese car industry did so well. And simply by doing the right thing, you can actually increase profits. But the principle is you invest in lean packaging, lean inventory, and eco-efficiency, and you will make more profit. It stands to reason. You can tell the eco story on your social media, your website, your blog, your packaging, and so on, but you also make more money. So my advice would be, look at your waste, optimize your stock levels, make sure your supply chain is efficient and functional, and remove inefficiencies that are going to leak margin. Effectively, it's all about auditing past errors, shoring up the supply chain, getting rid of dross, as we said in one of the earlier episodes, making sure that you eliminate the long tail of underperforming products. Small operational fixes, but many of them, result in significant financial gains later. So to wrap up, supply and sustainability aren't just corporate social responsibility, they are power plays. Relying on heritage, leaky supply chain, and forgetting to tell your story, that's your decline path. Retail winners this year and next are pivoting, packaging well, persuading customers, and convincing people that by buying from them, they're doing the right thing as well as satisfying their own needs. I'm Clare Bailey, Retail Champion, and you've been listening to Retail Reckoning.
Yeah, retail reckoning. Retail reckoning. No space for dusty shelves.